Well, here's the way I look at it. Finally, somebody is holding the Senate's feet to the fire. Reaction now from Club for Growth President and former Indiana Congressman David McIntosh. David, thanks for joining us. You know, I look at these CBO numbers and I think, well, nobody intends just to repeal Obamacare. I mean, you can come up with all these numbers. I know there are big debates about how accurate they are, how much the CBO can really know. But at the end of the day, something else is coming in place, and that would reduce the number of uninsured. Do you agree?
Totally. Those CBO numbers are really fake numbers because they assume people won't get a fully loaded Obamacare health insurance policy. And when you repeal it, then you can go back to a much greater variety. You can get the catastrophic care. And the fact is, when you put those into the mix, more people will be able to afford insurance than under Obamacare.
You know, I may have overstated at the top of the show just how far the president can go in keeping the Senate here over the summer. Certainly, he can shame and blame them, but at the end of the day, it's going to be their decision whether they stay. I want to ask you about that, though, because your organization, Club for Growth, is actually going to do some shaming and blaming of its own on its website. Tell us about that.
Well, we've identified 3 senators who voted for the total repeal, campaigned on repealing Obamacare, and now they're saying they won't vote for it, or maybe not even vote for the motion to proceed. We're putting it up on the website. We're pointing out how they're essentially being traitors to the whole Republican Party, which has promised to repeal Obamacare. I think there'll be movement by then. I look forward to those senators changing their mind and realizing they really need to do what they promised their voters they would do.
You got to say who they are. You can't just leave us hanging like that.
I'll gladly do that. It's Shelley Capito of West Virginia, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Rob Portman of Ohio. They all campaigned on repealing Obamacare. They promised their voters they'd do it. They showed them they would do it by voting for it last time, and they ought to do it again now.
Well, so that leads us to the president again and his conversation, which I thought was so interesting because he invited all the Republican senators in for lunch, and then he brings in the cameras and he really dresses them down. I want you to hear this. Listen to the president.
I'm ready to act. I have pen in hand, believe me. I'm sitting in that office. I have pen in hand. You never had that before. You know, for 7 years you had an easy route. We'll repeal, we'll replace, and he's never going to sign it. But I'm signing it. Inaction is not an option, and frankly, I don't think we should leave town unless we have a health insurance plan.
So is this the leadership we've been missing?
It's great leadership. I think the president has handled this very well. He let Congress take the lead. They write the bills. See, in behind the scenes, he's been pushing them, and the vice president's been helping negotiate the deal that got it through the House. And now he's publicly telling them failure's not an option. Get it done. I applaud the president for his leadership on this, and I think it'll make a difference. We're starting to hear late in the day that now senators are back talking, okay, maybe we can actually get this done. And I think Mitch McConnell's right. They'll move forward next week and then have a very good chance of passing a bill.
All right, stay right there, David. I want to bring in our panel, University of Maryland economist and former U.S. International Trade Commission Chief Peter Morici and GOP strategist and political analyst Ford O'Connell. Welcome to all of you. Great to have you along. We know that the Vice President Pence and the Health and Human Services Secretary tonight, they're headed to the Hill. They are going to twist some arms, Ford. Are they going to be successful? Will we get a vote next week? And will this move forward? Will the Senate finally come to grips with a job that's in front of them?
Well, they have to be successful. Look, President Trump is absolutely right. They've got to hammer out a compromise because people are hurting, and inaction is not an option. What my advice to Senate Republicans, whether you're on the conservative side or the moderate side, doing nothing is not an option here. You've been campaigning on this for 7 years through 4 election cycles, and you cannot let people down. If you do nothing, what you are saying to the American people and to your voters back home is that Obamacare is fine as is, and we know that is not the case. The problem for Republicans is they don't know how to govern, and if they don't figure out how to govern very quickly, they're going to lose control of Congress. So they have to understand the stakes and do their job.
All right, pardon me, guys. I've got some breaking news here we need to get to. Paul Manafort and Donald Trump Jr., that's Paul Manafort and Donald Trump Jr. appearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee next Wednesday. We'll, of course, be talking Russia. Those are obviously going to be the questions that are going to be asked. We'll have more details as we get them. You know, we're live. We're going to break in with news when we have it because we are doing this right in front of you right now. It's unfolding. I want to get back to this question, though, about the president, about health care. And Peter, I'm going to come to you. What I'm worried about, in no small part, is that the conversation over health care is delaying tax cuts. And we know that tax cuts can help the economy. Can you quantify for me what those tax cuts could mean for the economy?
Well, I think those tax cuts could be the difference between, say, 2 and 2.5% growth or even 3% growth. You know, if we couple the tax cuts with some health care reform, get the cost down, and set the momentum going forward for the president with regard to deregulation, then I think this economy can grow at 3%. Remember, health care reform will free up a lot of labor because a lot of folks are collecting, you know, health care without working and so forth, and we need to get those folks back to work.
Need to get those folks back to work. You know, I've been covering the healthcare crisis for a long, long time, and let me tell you, it is crushing the middle class. The president is right when he says that. You know, folks cannot handle the premiums that are skyrocketing, and he is right when he says in Alaska premiums are up 200%. That's absolutely correct. The average increase for 2018, according to the surveys I've seen, 20%. That's not acceptable. That can't happen. And beyond that, it's fewer choices, fewer doctors, narrow networks. I mean, at the end of the day, Ford, let me get you back in here for just a second. These exchanges aren't working. They're not working for the American people. That's my concern. What is it going to take to get this across the finish line?
Well, look, the Republicans actually have to come to an agreement. We have to show a little inter-party bipartisanship and realize the stakes. You're absolutely right. The problem here is choice, and really, Jerry, since 2013, premiums have doubled. You've got to stabilize Medicaid, which is out of control. You have to stabilize the individual market because right now it is unaffordable. And then even if they can't afford it, they don't actually have the proper competition to actually make sure that health insurance is working for the American worker. And overall, you're absolutely right. All this fills in the economy. To your point, Jerry, you have to understand something else. This is going to be done under budget reconciliation. Right. What's going to kill me here is we have 2 bites at budget reconciliation between now and the midterms. If we don't get this done by September 30th, a big chance will have passed the Republican Party in America.